Let's take a look inside the monastery of Ardisha. Upon entering the monastery, I immediately get goosebumps. This monastery is home to many saints, hermits and monks from all over the world. Ancient paintings, writings and drawings are well preserved here. Weekly masses still take place in the church here today. This is a black slab from the roof of the cave. It has a painting on it, which looks familiar. Does it remind you of anything? To me, it looks like the beginning of the seed, like cedar, seed of life symbol. It also looks like the cross-section of a pomegranate fruit. Could this be where they got the real Star of David from? From the bottom of a ripe pomegranate fruit? And here is the actual tomb where the giant bones were found. Notice the tiny and only entrance. This was so that he could defend himself from trespassers. In the valley of Ardisha, my grandparents and ancestors used to grow fruit and vegetables for 60 plus years before establishing a home in Hasrun. The valley is called Ardisha, and in Arabic Catholic Mass, we sing this as an opening hymn, and I am pretty sure it originated from this monastery. This is the day's harvest from my farm in the Weda, fruits of thy labor in Andobir. Can you see how the veins in the leaves are like the lines on our skin, like on my hand here?
Now what's interesting too is the similarity between words that we have in the area. For example, a town across from Hasrun is called Eden, E-H-D-E-N, which phonetically is the same as Eden, E-D-E-N, as in the Garden of Eden. Now, although it appears from the brilliant research of the God culture in studying the Book of Jubilees that the garden is in the land of Ophir, which is modern-day Philippines, the connection is still as profound as the giant cedar is to the tree of life. And in the same general area, Ophir shows up on the map as well. Please check out the God Cultures channel on YouTube for more information on this. I'll leave a link below. Now we have another phonetically similar word in Kadisha. Kadisha, K-A-D-I-S-H-A, which is very close to Kadash, K-A-D-O-S-H, as in night Kadash, the 30th degree in Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. The term Kadash is derived from the Hebrew word which means holy or consecrated. So night Kadash would be holy night. They consider the night holy, where Lucifer reigns. Knights Templar for Templars of the Night as well. Night Kadash's abbreviation is KK. KK in numerology is 22. 22 is the number of Christ, of his journey here on earth, usurped by the Luciferians, making Christ Lucifer in the tarot. The Masons followed the Gnostic writings of the Kabbalah. Night Kadash, Night Kabbalah.
Just a note here, Kadash sounds like it might be related to the Kardashians or the Kardashians. KK, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, the KKs. This is probably why these vile creatures are pushed into the news every day as a symbol for the KK. The Kardashians are likely candidates to be transsexual and androgynous, like the Freemasons' coveted Baphogoat.
Khloe, Kim, Courtney, or KKK. 11 plus 11 plus 11 equals 33. And we can't help but notice that KKK are the initials of the Ku Klux Klan, founded by Albert Pike, the head Mason and writer of Morals and Dogma. From the chapter of Night Kadash, the ghosts of the dead Templars haunt the Vatican and disturb the slumbers of the paralyzed papacy, which, dreading the dead, shriek out its excommunications and impotent anathemas against the living. It is a declaration of war and was needed to arouse apathy and inertness to action. It at length became a menace for the church and society when a rich and dissolute order, initiated in the mysterious doctrines of the Kabbalah, seems disposed to turn against legitimate authority, the conservative principle of hierarchy, and threaten the entire world with an immense revolution. The Templars, whose history is so imperfectly known, were those terrible conspirators. This rebuilding, formerly predicted by the Judaizing mystics of earlier ages, had become the secret dream of the patriarchs of the Orient. The Temple of Solomon, rebuilt and consecrated to the Catholic worship, would become, in effect, the metropolis of the universe. The East would prevail over the West, and the patriarchs of Constantinople would possess themselves of the papal power. Trumpets. And notice they're both wearing blue ties. Blue ties for Israel. Blue is the color of Lucifer. And they make sure to have the Christmas tree that looks like a cedar on Trump's right. Behind Trump, it looks like a mountain landscape with little cedars peeking over his left shoulder. On the left behind Pence, we have the flag in a pyramid shape. The stars are laying sideways so they have the appearance of pentagrams with the 2 points at the top of each. And it's topped by an eagle or phoenix, symbol of the Masons. It's kind of like their version of the tree behind Pence. Man-made as opposed to God-made.
Another random thought about pagan Christmas is that it is centered around trees and decorating them in materialistic rubbish, while hiding the true essence of trees and their true nature, power, and purpose of them in our world. The Christmas tree with the star on top, or the Northern Star, is a representation of our old world. The decorations are meant to be the fruit, and the gifts under the tree are meant to be the blessings of life, to provide food and shelter for all life on earth. The trees don't grow fruit for itself to consume. Every single aspect of a tree, from the roots to the bark, to the vines and the leaves, and right down to the fruit, all hold deep, sacred and special healing powers for the human body and the entire environment that the tree is surrounded in.
I totally agree. Many say it's a pagan symbol and make it bad, but it was usurped and made that way. Originally it was a symbol of our blessings. However, one thing people should be aware of, we should use live trees, trees with their roots intact, not cut trees. Cut trees represent the giant trees that they cut. So by having cut trees in our homes at Christmas has us unwittingly giving our blessings to this horrid act. Live trees, trees that we should plant after Christmas, add beautiful trees to our plain instead of subtracting them from it. Like the forest of Lebanon, which only covers 13% of the land in present day.
There are 41 mentions of trees in the book of Enoch. Here's one of the more fascinating ones. This is from the book of Enoch, chapter 32. And after these fragrant odors, as I looked towards the north over the mountains, I saw 7 mountains full of choice nard and fragrant trees, and cinnamon and pepper. And thence I went over the summits of all the mountains, far towards the east of the earth, and passed above the Erythraean Sea and went far from it, and passed over the angel Zotiel, and I came to the garden of righteousness. And from afar off, trees were numerous. These trees, and great 2 trees, were there, very great, beautiful, and glorious, and magnificent, and the tree of knowledge, whose holy fruit they eat, and know great wisdom. That tree is in height like the fir, and its leaves are like those of the carob tree, and its fruit is like the clusters of the vine, very beautiful. and the fragrance of the tree penetrates afar. Then I said, how beautiful is this tree, and how attractive is its look. Then Raphael, the holy angel, who was with me, answered me and said, this is the tree of wisdom, of which thy father and old in years, and thy aged mother, who were before thee, have eaten, and they learnt wisdom, and their eyes were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they were driven out of the garden.
Notice how similar the tree looks to the tower card in the tarot deck, at the bottom of which looks like a tree. Notice the base is among the clouds, just like El Arez looks like this base and is among the clouds. With Trump still in mind, look at the next picture. It's Trump Tower. Trump Tower is the Tower of Babel, replacing the Tree of Life. Man-made tower as opposed to cedars, Seeders, God's towers. Let's continue with the Kadash quote. Sword and trowel, the Templars' insignia, concealed themselves as brethren masons. The trowel of the Templars is quadruple, and the triangular plates of it are arranged in the form of a cross, making the Kabbalistic pentacle known by the name of the Cross of the East. Thus, the Order of the Knights of the Temple was at its very origin devoted to the cause of opposition to the tiara of Rome and the crown of kings, and the apostate of Kabbalistic Gnosticism was vested in its chiefs. So the Cross of the East is a symbol of Kabbalistic Gnosticism. Notice Crowley's Cross of the East to his right. And what is written next to it? Baphomet. Remember that word, it will come up again shortly. And here, with the sovereign commander of the Masons with his Cross of the East on his fez. Notice the tint of this photo? It is purple, Phoenician purple. We continue. To acquire influence and wealth, then to intrigue, and at need to fight, to establish the Johannite or Gnostic and Kabbalistic dogma, were the object and means proposed to the initiated brethren. The papacy and the rival monarchies, they said to them, all sold and bought in these days, became corrupt, and tomorrow, perhaps, will destroy each other. All that will become the heritage of the temple, the world will soon come to us for its sovereigns and pontiffs. We shall constitute the equilibrium of the universe and be rulers over the masters of the world. Did you catch that? And they will be rulers over the masters of the world. The Templars, like all other secret orders and associations, had two doctrines, one concealed and reserved for the masters, which was Johannism, the other public, which was Roman Catholic. Thus, they deceived the adversaries whom they sought to supplant. Hence, Freemasonry, vulgarly imagined to have begun with the Dionysian architects or the German stoneworkers, adopted St. John the Evangelist as one of its patrons, associating with him in order not to arouse the suspicions of Rome, St. John the Baptist, and thus covertly proclaiming itself the child of the Kabbalah and Essenism together. And wherever in the higher degrees the two colors, white and black, are in juxtaposition, the two principles of Zoroastrian manes are alluded to. It is absurd to suppose that men in intellect adored a monstrous idol called Baphomet, or recognized Mahomet as an inspired prophet. The symbols of the wise always become the idols of the ignorant multitude. Remember Crowley's Baphomet? And we see how the cross of the east represents Kabbalistic Gnosticism. And we see here also how the Masons covertly worship John the Baptist and try to associate him with the Kabbalah and Essenism. Here is a Masonic-inspired version of John the Baptist, with him doing the as above, so below. Notice 1 foot up, 1 foot down, sitting on a throne with a scepter in his hand, and naked except for a cloth draped over his privates, just like in this next picture, which looks eerily similar to the statue of Mason George Washington doing the same pose and dressed the same way, which looks eerily similar to their Baphomet doing the same pose and dressed the same way. So we can see just from the one painting of John the Baptist that they are usurping him, using him to promote Gnosticism. Remember, this is from Night Kadash, straight from Morals and Dogma, straight from the Mason's own writings. And Donald Trump is a Mason. I'll leave a link to his appearance on the Jimmy Fallon show, where he has to go through his humiliation ritual to move up in Freemasonry. And you'll notice he holds up his thumbs and index fingers, forming 2 L's. L in numerology is 3, so holding 2 up, he is making the 33 of Masonry. So they tell us they worship John the Baptist, and what's interesting is that John the Baptist lived in Qumran. In further reading in Night Kadash, the legend of Osiris was revised and adopted to symbolize the destruction of the order and the resurrection of Kurum, slain in the body of the temple of Kurum Abba, the master as the martyr, or fidelity of obligation of truth and consequence, prophesies the restoration to life of the buried association. So they associate Kurum with Osiris, and we notice how phonetically similar Qumran is to Kurum. We are in the land of the Phoenicians, no less. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in caves in Qumran. The Essenes did not live in Qumran. They lived above En-Gedi on the southwest shore of the Dead Sea, with 5 villages in between. There were no Gnostic texts found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Essenes were Gnostics, as we just read straight from the Masons' writings. They were not even mentioned in the Bible. The Gnostic texts were found in Alexandria, Egypt, nowhere near Qumran. And notice how similar the place where the scrolls were found are to a modern-day cedar tree's base.